Welcome everybody. So as I mentioned, this is the SSC's virtual pre-health career panel. I have here a good set of our panelists today that I will be introducing shortly. I just want to say, firstly, for anyone who is here coming from as an SSC student, we will be posting in the chat shortly just a link that you can use in order to log your attendance for an event for the semester. So please be sure to use that at your convenience. And yes, it's just been posted at the chat. It will be also posted near the end of the meeting as well for anyone who needs it then. But we will go ahead and start with introducing our panelists. So we'll start with and I'll kind of pose an introductory question as well to each of our panelists, just to let you kind of just give us a sense of your background, just things like that. So Dr. Davila, if you wouldn't mind starting with us, can you please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career?
Sure, absolutely. So hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. So my name is Dr. Davila. I'm a doctor of internal medicine here in San Antonio, Texas. My quickly journey to becoming a clinician actually was derailed slightly. My initial approach was to go PhD. I got my bachelor's in biology at Baylor University. Was a prior U.S. naval officer, spent some time doing that. And then when I came back to academia, I achieved my master's in exercise physiology with a focus in clinical exercise physiology. And my original approach was to go into the academic realm. But through good mentorship and recommendations, the importance of what we know and what we learn from that area of education has great application in the clinical world. So I decided to take down that approach. So now my goal is to take the knowledge and science of exercise and sports science into the realm of general clinical care.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dr. Davila. Next, Dr. Bryant, I'll pose the same question. Can you please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career?
Absolutely. I grew up locally here in the Inland Empire in Rancho. I locally went to Los Osos High School where I was in athletics, had a love of sport and health and wellness that intrigued my interest in either becoming a primary medicine doctor or looking into physical therapy. I started volunteering locally at a local outpatient physical therapy clinic where I generally fell in love with the ability to impact people's overall wellness, healing, recovery through the rehab process, and our ability to help patients not only implement physical therapy in the realm of recovering from an injury, but how to maybe prolong their health or improve their overall health and wellness. And being an alumni from Cal State San Bernardino, I went to Loma Linda due to just the curriculum following very well from Cal State San Bernardino. And I felt like I was very well prepared in leaving here from Cal State San Bernardino. And then because of my love of the local area, I have stayed locally, working a little bit at Loma Linda and here. And that's how I've come to be here on my journey so far.
Great, thank you so much. Okay. Go ahead and move on to Rebecca, if you wouldn't mind. So same question. Can you please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career?
Okay, hi everyone. So I am a CSUSB alum. I have my bachelor's in biology and in psychology. Currently, I am working on my master's here at Cal State San Bernardino, and I'm also a phlebotomist and a lab assistant for the county. So kind of have a lot on my plate. I'm trying to juggle everything the best I can.
Great, thank you so much. Move to Jesus, if you would like, please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career.
Hey everybody, my name's Jesus, first year medical student at UCR. I'm a non-traditional student. I'm in my 30s now, but I grew up in LA and I moved over to San Bernardino. I guess what led me to pursue medicine was seeing kind of the lack of representation in my culture. Growing up, my family kind of grew up fearing medicine and, approaching any kind of help. And I think the common factor was, not being able to see someone who looks like me or who grew up like me in medicine. So that kind of eventually, turned me towards this path. after working warehouse jobs and all kinds of things before I, committed to my education.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And then our final panelist, Leslie, if you wouldn't mind, just please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Leslie. I graduated from Cal State Los Angeles 2021. I will be starting medical school in July, and really what got me really into my medical school journey is that I was undocumented till I was 17 years old, and at 13 years old, I had a facial paralysis. Once again, I back to the health insurance. There was really nobody who looked like me or spoke Spanish. The public policy really came into play for me, and just wanted to be that representative face in my community who not only advocates but provides that quality healthcare that they need is really what's pushing me and driving me to become the doctor I want to be.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So yeah, so I think we have, just a fair, very good mix of just, backgrounds and people at varying levels of, their education. So plenty of great perspectives here today. So thank you so much all for introducing yourselves with that. So we'll just move into some of our prepared questions that we have for all of you. I want to mention at this point, so we want to leave plenty of time for any in attendance, if they happen to have any questions that occur to them that they would like to ask at any point. A bit later in this panel, we will have plenty of opportunity for that. So I will make occasional calls for questions from the audience. So please have those prepared. Just have that on your mind if you would like to do that at some point. But I'll start with our first prepared question that I'd like to ask. So what skills would you say have been most useful in your career, whether that maybe with a particular focus on from skills gained during your undergrad, but really at any point during your career so far? So start with Dr. Davila, if you'd like to comment on that.
Sure. Biggest skill, which as cliche as it might sound, is just pure unadulterated adaptability. There's always going to be a blueprint of some kind that the person before you has either provided or recommendations or hints. But at the end of the day, once you do your path, and the experiences you have are going to be unique to yourself. And very often than not, they're not going to fall in line with that algorithm, that blueprint. And it's going to throw you off a little bit. But at the end of the day, just being able to have that adaptability to just kind of change whatever you need to do to continue down that path will just pay off dividends, and irrespective of any career path, job, or academic profession.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Bryant, if you'd like to comment next, just on what skills have you felt have been most useful for your career so far?
I think that learning how to communicate very clearly and concisely. In working in physical therapy, there is a wide range of disciplines that I have to work with. And so learning to communicate with the bedside nurse, learning to communicate with families, the patient themselves, and even the surgeons and doctors that we're having to work under, and learning how to be that team player is a very, very vital role. And I feel like in what we do in rehab is it's not just exercising, as you do have to build some very good communication skills with a variety of people and personalities, and understanding how to successfully do that to support your patient and the patient care you're providing.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so important to have those soft skills, just some acquaintance with them. So important for getting to a good place in your career. Thank you so much. Jesus, if you wouldn't mind commenting next.
Sure. I guess what comes to mind is speaking Spanish, or for anybody learning a second language. It always helps, broaden the amount of people you could reach. And in my case, Spanish was my first language. So I think that was very helpful throughout whatever I was doing, whether that was before school started or after I committed.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely be able to reach more people, always helpful. Rebecca, if you'd like to comment next.
I think the most useful thing is being able to communicate well with your team, and to be able to divide the workload, because there's no way you can do a single job on your own. So it's important to figure out what works best with your team and seeing how to efficiently and effectively carry out the roles in your job. So teamwork.
Yeah, we always love teamwork. Thank you so much. Yeah, and then Leslie, yeah, if you would like to finish us off with that question for skills that you feel have been most useful for your career so far.
So I think that all that have been said have been extremely useful, but I think for me, a big one has been networking. Honestly, just being able to network and being able to ask for help when I knew I was going to get stuck. And then also acknowledging that there are other people that are going to help me, and community building. It takes a whole village, right, to get you here. And that network and community-based skill will definitely help you get where you want to be, whether it's going into medicine or whether if you have to take different turns along the way. They'll definitely help guide you back to where you belong.
Okay, great. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, yeah, thank you all for your commenting on just a variety of just those valuable skills just out may not fall directly into just academic knowledge, but just those soft skills, things that can benefit us in just in so many ways. So from there, I'd like to my next question for everybody focus more on something that a few of you touched on in your introduction, but I just want to get maybe expand on it a bit. When you first entered college, what did you think your career would be like, and how did that change? Especially anything, considering into the, all of you, leaning towards that medical field, get a sense of that. So yeah, Dr. Bryant, if you'd like to start us off on that question.
I think for many of us going into physical therapy, we are athletes who have a hard time retiring from the athletic world, and we're wanting to be in that outpatient ortho type of experience. Little did I know in leaving my academic setting in Loma Linda how much I would really love acute care and what services we provide as a field of physical therapy for early mobility, safe discharge planning. And there's this huge part of the world of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy involved in a patient care, and how much of a difference we can make in preventing any conditions from being worse or having them leaving the hospital a little bit safer or more independent, and really advocating for patients. And so I think that took me by surprise, and that's where my career went after leaving Cal State San Bernardino. But then also coming back, I wasn't anticipating that I had this desire to give back to the university and the students, because of the professors that once inspired me. And I think that's a big part of our field as clinicians, is also promoting, the clinicians coming up underneath us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. Dr. Davila, if we could have your input next. Again, the question is, when you first entered college, what did you think your career would be like, and how did that change over time?
Yeah, so when I first went as an undergrad, I thought I went as a pre-med, and I ended up that way eventually, but there was this huge arc in between, and it was beyond necessary for me as an individual. I was the first one in my family to go to college. I was one of the first ones to graduate high school. I came from a South Texas farming community family of migrant farm workers, and I thought I had it all figured out. I was supposed to be the one who just knew the world already, and that was beyond far from the truth. And going, thankfully, with a little bit of change, I ended up joining the military after I graduated from college, and that experience completely changed my view of, not just humility, but adaptability, mental toughness, the importance of servitude more than anything. And that gave me the correct mindset to re-enter academia after I had finished my tours, and gave me that right mindset to not only be much more successful in medicine, but also to understand what its actual point of it is, not so much just a job, but another extension of servitude that I enjoyed and I learned and I loved. So yeah, I would say the long story short is, got where I ended up being with a whole bunch of stuff in the middle that I wasn't expecting.
Okay, yeah, definitely quite a path. Yeah, but yeah, always helpful to have that foundation for to find something to care about. So thank you so much. Leslie, if you would like to take that question next. Again, when you first entered college, what did you think your career would be like, and how did that change over time?
Yeah, so I started college being a kinesiology major. I actually wanted to be a physical therapist. I just loved that the way I could move with my hands, finally being like very holistic. And medicine was always in the back of my head, but I just thought like I couldn't do it. I was like, how am I going to pay for medical school? And I didn't know nobody, so I just thought like physical therapy, it would be more manageable for me. Um, I joined an organization called Pre-Health Dreamers. Pretty much like we went through like that organization to see how undocumented individuals really navigate the healthcare system, but also from a professional standpoint. And that's when I ran into my first set of doctors, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I can do this. And I remember I went to my mentor. I went to my organic chemistry teacher. He was the only Latino professor I had. And he told me, he's like, Leslie, tú puedes. Like, you can do this. I was like, oh, okay. So I started taking baby steps. Ultimately, I changed my major to exercise science, which wasn't a big move again. And then I'm here. I think what I did take like my little turns. I took 2 gap years. I'm currently working as a counselor right now, as a Science Success Center here at Cal State San Bernardino. I did not expect to work in education during my gap years, but I definitely feel like I've had a lot of self-growth from it, and it's only shown me why I want to not only educate my community also, but the gaps within education that we are lacking, and it only makes me a bigger advocate for mentorship and for more representation in medicine. So that's kind of my journey right now. And I guess to top it off, when I first thought about applying to medical school, I was set that I was going to stay in state. I did not want to leave California. And after 2 years of self-reflecting, I am happy to say that I will be leaving the state because it is the best thing for my self-growth and my professional growth. So yeah, California will always be home. I can always come back, but I'm taking that step for my community and for myself to grow and be a better professional.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it's so important to know that, education and just our life paths very rarely linear. Always a lot of stops that we'll make in different directions to end up in, whatever benefits us the most in the long term. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Rebecca, if you would like to go next. Again, the question is, when you first entered college, what did you think your career would be like, and how did that change over time?
Okay, so it's definitely not what I expected, but in a good way. I first started off my undergrad as being a pre-nursing major, and it's super impacted, especially here at Cal State San Bernardino. And then eventually I changed my major to biology, and along the way I took a couple classes, and accumulated enough classes to double major, which is why I have that psych major as well. Currently, with me being a master's student, I gained a whole bunch of like wet lab skills, and I feel like this has geared me towards more being interested in like lab type hands-on type of work. And so that's where I'm going towards. So currently I'm trying to work my way towards being a clinical lab scientist. And so I think the wet lab skills and just like projects in the master's program has really reinforced the idea of doing more in that field. And so I think that's definitely geared me up and prepared me pretty well for what I want to do later in life.
Great, thank you so much for that. And then Jesus, if we could end off with you on that question. So again, when you first entered college, what did you think your career would be like, and how did that change?
It's funny because I didn't have many expectations when I was going back to college. It was like probably like 4 times before I kind of stuck with it. So on the 4th try, I was just kind of like, let's just do our best here, and what comes out of it comes out of it. I kind of knew that I wanted to be in the sciences. Chemistry was the first thing that kind of clicked for me. So I thought, okay, chemistry, clinical scientist, lab scientist. But as I kind of started to reflect on my life experiences, I kind of started moving towards more healthcare roles. And because of that, I wanted to keep myself open. So I, shadowed physicians, I shadowed PAs, I volunteered at hospitals, worked with nurses. So I kind of exposed myself to various roles just to see what would fit. Little by little, I kind of started narrowing it down. And I didn't think that I would, eventually end up doing that because I had a lot of imposter syndrome as I was going through it. So I think that kind of made the path a little longer than maybe some people are comfortable with. I know sometimes students feel like they need to get through it real quick and get it done. But for me, it took me like 7 years to get my bachelor's degree. So yeah, definitely not where I thought I would be. Definitely not how long I thought it would take, but I'm happy where it's gone for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you for all of your opinions on that particular question. So yeah, education and life paths is always going to look different for everybody. So yeah, thank you for all of your inputs. Yeah, so at this point, I'd like to get the first opportunity for any audience questions that we may have. I'll try and be asking for this after each of our subsequent questions in the future. But so yeah, if anyone in the audience happens to have anything they'd like to ask our panelists, they'll take just a second. Yeah, if anyone would like to submit anything either through the chat feature or just to unmute your mic and call one out. Okay, we'll let everyone potentially think about that for the future. Maybe we'll come back to it in a bit. Okay, we have one question from our audience. So yeah, very important question here. How is the process applying to medical school? So I think a fair amount of our panelists have experienced that. Maybe this time we could start with Leslie. I know you've had that experience. So if you'd like to comment on that.
Okay, I know some of the people here are my students, so you've heard about this, so sorry if it's redundant. Do realize that it is a year-long process, so definitely plan ahead. See if you're going to take a gap year or not, because if you do plan to take a gap year, then you will take the MCAT after graduation. If you are not planning to take a gap year, you will actually have to do it sometime in the summer or in your senior year. Along with that, just getting a set of mentors that are solid, who can guide you through the multiple step process. You will apply sometime in applications open in June. You'll get something called, there's a primary and secondary, pretty much like I like to explain, it's like when you apply to all the Cal States, you submit one essay, everybody reads it, and then the medical schools are like, okay, cool, you fulfilled my requirements. I think you're a cool person. Here's a set of 5 other questions that are unique to my school in a way, and answer them. Then they reply to you and they're like, okay, well, I think your responses were good. You seem like a cool applicant. Come and interview with me. You interview. Once that happens, pretty much you wait, and it can be either, like for me, within a week I got a response, and other schools it took a couple months. So it really varies. Your application cycle starts in June, but I can say that the last interview I had was actually last month. So as you can tell, between that time I was interviewing, also I was seeing acceptances. I was also seeing the secondaries, and up to April right now, yesterday we had to narrow down to 3 choices, in which you pretty much say, hey, I got admitted into these 3 schools. These are the 3 schools I want to save my spot at. And then from there, I think in a month we have to declare where we're going to be going to medical school. In some cases, you'll see that some schools will match your financial aid packages. In other situations, some schools might not. The best piece of advice that I got was like, yes, money's important, but do consider how you will grow more and your end result in residency, and what will fulfill you as a person. So let's say you know that they tell you, I'll give you a full ride if you go to UC San Francisco, but you know for a fact you're not going to be happy there, and UCR just feels like home and you're going to have more growth here. Maybe it's worth taking those loan ads out. There is some such things as loan forgiveness. If you do give back to underserved communities, there's so many ways to pay back for medical school. The number's a big thing. Trust me, I'm starting to freak out when I start seeing a lot of zeros at the end. But so far that's been my experience. And if I can go ahead and just say, I can drill one thing in your head: find the right mentor for you. Do not do it alone. there are people who want to help you. And I think Jesus, you could also kind of comment like on your application cycle.
Yeah, everything you said, Leslie, is very true. It's an emotion. I just add it's an emotional roller coaster. For one, because it's a lot of work, obviously, but two, I found that you have to do a lot of self-reflection and really think about your story and who you are and what your values are. And when you're putting in writing, it just becomes hard, at least for me, to put those words out in writing and get that out. Definitely get yourself find a mentor. Doesn't really need to be a physician, someone who believes in you, someone who's gone through any kind of rigorous process to get anywhere, have had goals and committed to them. I think it's important to find that because it's kind of difficult. It's a marathon for sure. Leslie, you said it's like a year process. I think it's like 8-year process, at least for me, because it just took me that long, and or 3 years if by the time that you graduate to when you say yes, right? So just keep that in mind that it's a marathon. Pace yourself, be kind to yourself, because you're your number one advocate really at the end of the day.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, very comprehensive answers from Leslie and Jesus. Any of our other panelists like to expand on any of that before we move on? Please, Dr. Davila.
One thing, and you guys were awesome. Speaking from somebody who was on one end of it when I started, now I sit on my medical school's board when it comes to interviewing and selecting. And one thing that if I want to stress this beyond anything is don't try to create a narrative of who you are based on what you think a med school or an interviewee wants to hear. Because I'll tell you, when we have a stack of thousands of applicants, everybody gets muddled in the wash when all I hear is, I volunteered, I was a scribe, I had a 4.0, I wanted to be a doctor since I was 2, and all of these things. There's nothing unique. But when I hear a story of something unique to you, so I love that you had that may have nothing to do with medicine. I had one person who literally was talking to me about how much they love geology. And I don't know anything about geology, but I remember that interview because the passion that came through that individual, what they were describing was a memory hook that captivated me. And in that, I saw true passion, or what Jesus talked about the reality of how his progression has been. To some people, like, oh, I should kind of keep that hidden because it makes me look like I'm not perfect. In reality, it's far from that. It creates a narrative of how unique you are as a person. So find that what makes you so unique, that thing that drives you, that shows you the perseverance you've had to have and the difficulties you've had to endure. And that will be one of the most powerful things you could have in your interview, irrespective of med school or whatever other high level position you try to apply to.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Davila. So we're getting quite a few questions from our audience. So I definitely want to take some time just to, address some of those in order. So we'll kind of be diverging a bit from our planned questions. So I think the next one I'd like to take very related to the previous question, but more in, I believe, Dr. Bryant's area for the physical therapy kind of route of schooling. What was the process like for that application kind of process, if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Bryant?
Yes, so to touch on some of the other professionals on this council and this is something I do talk a lot about in the Kines 2100 class when discussing the field of kinesiology, what you're going to do with your allied health degree or ex-phys degree and applying to grad school programs, specifically PT. They're all very difficult. There is a GPA that you have to meet. There is, for every 60 spots of admission, there's 1,500 students applying. And to touch on Dr. Davila is, yes, most of everybody has met good grades. We know that about you. Everyone's very intelligent, but the thing with applying to a PT program is apply to multiple, because you not only are trying to find a good program that's a good fit for you, but are you a good fit for them, and getting to really know each applicant as an individual. Of you're kind of selling yourself in a sense, is they've seen your GPA, they love that, they've seen your volunteer experience, but is knowing that they want to know who you are as a person and making sure that the school you're in is a good fit for you, whatever your living situation is, and those things. because it is hard. The other thing is to touch on one of the questions is because it is so difficult, I would anticipate for most applicants graduating right out of undergrad, a lot of people end up having a gap year. And one of my mentors always through undergrad said, don't be so ashamed or scared of that gap year, is that is a time to either one, financially save, take a little bit of a mental, physical break from school, go live life a little bit. And then you feel a little bit refreshed and ready to go for grad school if that's really what you decide. And like you said, is the path might veer a little bit, but in that break there is a growing experience. And 85-90% of applicants, most of my colleagues have said they had to apply at least twice. And so I say that and encourage people, don't diminish the process of applying to grad schools, because it is very, very difficult. And I'll leave off with one of my mentors through grad school stated, I believe it's throughout the nation, it's less than 3% of the population who goes on to get a doctorate degree level, whether it's an MD, a PhD, being a PT, so that's very few people. So applaud yourself for trying to be a part of that process, because it's very, very difficult and it takes time, anything worthwhile.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Bryant. So some of what you mentioned actually rolls very well into next question kind of on our list. How did you deal with adjusting to changes in your career path, like taking gap years or taking longer than you expected and things of that nature? So you've commented on some of that. Would anyone else like to comment on that sort of question of gap years or extensions to your plans?
I guess I could comment on that. After I graduated with my bachelor's, I think I took 2 gap years. And then also I mentioned it took me like 7 years to get my bachelor's, so definitely not the ideal kind of time frame for that. It was difficult. I couldn't say that it was like easy to face that. And like I said, you kind of have to be kinder to yourself, because at the end of the day, I forget how the quote goes, but like if you compare yourself to others and their path, it kind of drains you of your happiness at the end of the day. And I had to learn that throughout my multiple attempts of trying to go back to school. I think that was one of the things that kind of pushed me towards, dropping out, was that I always compared myself to how everybody else around me was doing, and that demotivated me every time. And when I kind of started to realize that that was what kind of deterred me from my own success, or believing in what I could do, it really changed my pathway. Also, find something you love to do outside of your academia. For me, jiu-jitsu has been something that I've been doing since longer than my schooling, and that's kept me through the whole time, physically, mentally. If I can't get myself to study, at least I can get myself to go train. So finding what you love to do outside of academia is very important, I think.
Great. Thank you so much, Jesus, for your comments there. Thanks so much, everyone, for your comments so far. So the next question, focuses on, I think I'd like to pose to Rebecca, because I think it's more in line with the CLS kind of direction. Do you only get wet lab experience within being a master's program, or can a student get that experience in the process of getting their bachelor's?
Okay, yeah, I can definitely answer this one. So besides the lab classes that you take in your bachelor's program, I do recommend kind of asking around, especially with your professors. There are always professors looking for undergrads to work in their labs. So depending on what kind of lab work you like doing, so whether it's leaning more towards chemistry or like plants, and we have a whole bunch of other things, but professors are always looking for undergrads to help out in their lab as well. Also, I think there's a couple like volunteer opportunities that you could do too. I know with the county, there's a bunch of like things that you can also do. So like inside the clinical lab itself, there's volunteer positions and other areas as well. So look into that, I would say. I don't know if that's any help.
No, I think that's great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. Yeah, I guess I can add, in my personal opinion, as a counselor, to just, keeping up to date with classes that are offered in your major that can kind of, overlap, and just, strictly with just labs that are, included with some of those, can always be a good opportunity to kind of broaden your skill set in that way too. But yes, thank you so much. Um, So yeah, so our next questions, I believe Leslie has actually posted in the chat about potentially wanting to address our next question. So I'll let her take the kind of lead on this next portion of how can you make yourself more competitive in the admission process for medical schools, and just resources for how to apply for them. So yeah, Leslie, if you'd like to comment on that.
Yeah, so I did start replying to Leslie's question. Other Leslie, not my own question.
I see.
She so the main thing is that we do have a health advising center here at Cal State San Bernardino. That would be the first place I would go to stop by. Crystal has amazing resources for you all. If you're part of the Science Success Center, we're more than happy to meet with you. But if you're more like, I already done this, I want outside resources, I personally did the pathway programs to the UCR School of Medicine. I got literally all my mentorship that I did from Miss Teresa Coalfield and Esmeralda Trejo and Stephanie. And they've been like always there for me. I was able to not only get research opportunities, but also learn more about public health, public policy. They do have the health coach program, which is great, where they train you to be a health coach. They train you in motivational interviewing. I did work at a low income clinic where I had patients with at least 2 chronic diseases. 99% of my patients were Spanish speaking, and just being able to be in that clinical setting, feeling like I had a direct impact on patients, learning how to use like Epic and all that stuff was really great for me. I was able to get a lot of mentorships from the people who were working at clinic too. This was through RUHS, and then along with that, they do hold like events for you to come and meet mentors, such as like also like other meetings like this. I don't know if you guys have heard about Health Career Connections too. I did an internship with them 2 years ago. I was an intern for the UCR School of Medicine for their behavioral health department, and pretty much through them, you don't only have to do internships that have to do with medicine. You can do anything with, whether it's like behavioral health based, public health, public policy. You write in your personal statement what you want to do. They even have data science actually internships that have to do with healthcare, because healthcare is so broad. So that's a really important resource that I recommend. And just I feel like me just listing out things, maybe if you're like me, if I just list out things, you're gonna start getting overwhelmed. You're like, oh my gosh, I have to do all this. You can always make a month by month plan with the mentor, and I think that's why a good way would be just going to get health advising, because then you can make, okay, this month I'm going to focus on this month I'm going to focus on that, and you can come up with your game plan on what uniquely makes you, because as Dr. Davila said, everybody knows when you applied, and also Dr. Brian, that you're smart, you want to do medicine, but what else is there than I just wanted to do medicine, and I have this passion for medicine? Before being a doctor, before being a student, you are human. Show me your human side. Show me why you're amazing. So that would be the biggest piece of advice. I'd be more than happy to share more resources. And also, if you just want resource at the tip of your fingers, Mi Mentor on Instagram is a great resource. They also have a year-long program where you can sign up. They pair you up with a mentor, and they go through the whole medical school application process with you.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie. I should mention for anyone who joined us a bit late, we are recording this meeting, and all of our career panels do get posted to the Science Success Center's event page, which you can just find by searching for CSUSB Science Success Center. So please, if you'd like to refer back to anything that's mentioned in this video, that will always be contained there for you to refer back to. But yeah, thank you so much, Leslie. Would anyone else like to comment on that particular kind of area of questions for being competitive in any given application process?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that because I think sometimes what students don't want to hear is it is hard to get into some of these competitive programs, and at the end of the day is setting reasonable goals through undergrad with your GPA and taking specific prerequisites, is because at the end of the day, for these competitive programs, you do have to have the grades. You do have to have the GPA. Is looking at your programs and looking what is the average applying GPA, just not the minimum GPA to be admitted, and setting your goals reasonably, in that if the average application group had a 3.7, 3.8 GPA for PT school, med school, DO school, whatever it might be, and you have a full load and you're not cutting those grades, they are going to look at that. So I don't want to negate the importance of getting that good grade in some of those prereqs. So I encourage students to go talk to your academic advisors, making your schedules when you're registering for classes, what classes are going to be a heavier load, which are not, because going through the dredges with that process of undergrad myself is set up your curriculum so that way you can get the good grades that you need to get prereqs in, so you can be competitive. And I don't want to negate from the fact is your GPA is important, and the cherry on top of your pretty little application is going to be all those extracurricular things. So, do keep that in mind through this undergrad process. Even again, we talked about that gap year of, do you need to retake a few courses to make your application a little bit stronger? Utilize that and just keep that in mind through this journey of trying to get through your grad programs.
Okay, yes, thank you so much, Dr. Bryant. Anyone else would like to comment on that particular area before we move on? Okay, so yeah, we'll just move on to our next question. So yes, I think that's all of our audience questions so far. I think we should have time for one or two potentially audience questions, if anyone still has any that they'd like to put into the chat. But for now, I will go back to some of our prepared questions. So I did want to touch on, I believe one of our panelists mentioned the importance of mentors a bit earlier. So I want to pose that more generally to everybody. Did you have a mentor? And if so, is there any advice you give for finding a good mentor for the particular field that you're looking to get into? Dr. Davila, if you'd like to start us with that.
Sure. I've had a mentor in every phase of my professional life, period. It was built into it in the military, and I think that's when I first saw the importance of it. It's somebody, and you realize the importance of that they're the person that you can be a bit more, that's what I'm looking for here, that's the best word, is open, like be an open book about. You don't have to be so protected. You don't have to feel like the best foot's always forward. They know you better than anybody, and you need to feel that comfort. My most recent was actually, and this speaks to a good mentor, in my humble opinion, is one that will do the thing that's best for you when it actually negatively impacts them. My mentor, when I did my master's, he was going to be my PhD mentor. He was taking me down that path. But after all these conversations, he's the one that said, you know what? I'd love to have you as a PhD, but that's not your path. Everything you're saying, everything you're doing, everything you want to do, it's not here. You got to go over there. And, why don't we work towards getting you over there? And that was amazing to me, because that was not his responsibility to do that, but he did it. So don't underestimate that. Find the person that you just can be that close with. And yes, it's important to find one that mimics exactly what you want to be. Sometimes if that person that you want to be what they are, but their story was so different, it may not really reflect you as much as you think, and you might not have that connection with them. My humble opinion on that one. But yes, I did.
Right. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for that insight. Yeah, definitely helpful. Rebecca, if you'd like to maybe comment on, mentors, if you've had them, and, any advice for choosing a good one.
Okay. So, while being in the master's program, you do have a set mentor that oversees kind of your thesis project. So it's important to find a mentor that is able to communicate well with you and be able to meet with you for your needs, especially during the process of writing and doing your actual experiments and stuff. So it's important to find one that actually will not fit with your schedule, I guess, like be available and work with you with your schedule.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Maybe we'll go with Dr. Bryant next, if you'd like to have any comments on that.
Yeah, again, similar to Dr. Davila, I have been through multiple phases of life where I've had different mentors through an undergrad season, through a graduate season, and now being a professional is having a mentor to help you guide, where you're going to specialize in, maybe what company fits your personal needs and your career needs, or a mentor that helps you navigate being a clinician, but then also what you're a human as well, and finding that employer to support you in your job and your personal life. So that's kind of what you deal with a little bit after grad school. And so that's a whole different season of life we go through. And it's funny how some mentors come back to visit around. My current department chair used to be a mentor of mine a long, long time ago. So it's nice when life comes full circle a little bit in that sense. And sometimes they go away for a little bit and come back. So I think that is looking back how I reflect on some of my mentors in that way and how I still need them today as a young professional.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Jesus, if you would, if you have anything to maybe, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, it goes back to what Dr. Brian was saying, is nurturing those relationships after you do find someone you're comfortable with. The mentors that you will come across, they come into your life, and most of the time they're there to help their students or people that come up to them and part of their class, or for example, like my jiu-jitsu coach, he's my coach, right? But without my effort and without me trying to invest in, our relationship, whether it's mentor-mentee or coach-coachee or trainee, it won't develop. So it does take a lot of work from you to show your mentor that you're invested in whatever it is that they're trying to show you, or whatever advice they're trying to portray or instill in you. And yeah, also keep an open mind, have multiple mentors for different aspects of your life, something for your academia, something for your personal, if you're a spiritual person, something for your spiritual side of you, what have you. But yeah, the most important thing is putting yourself out there and nurturing that, watering that plant, so to speak, so that they see that you're invested.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely some important aspects to keep in mind. And finally, Leslie, I believe you commented first on the topic of mentors. So totally fine if you'd like to keep it at that, but if there's anything else you'd like to add, definitely welcome to it.
Nope, everybody covered it pretty well.
Okay, fine by me. So yeah, we are getting near the end of our panel. So I might go with kind of my planned just concluding question. I did want to open it up just in case anyone has any quick questions in the chat. We may have a little bit of time after this concluding question, but I'll go ahead with this, and then if anyone has any last things that they think of in the chat, we'll see if we have time to address it. But the last thing I want to end on is kind of a more broad question. Do you have any advice, either that's just been helpful to you personally, or just that you'd recommend for students on how to stay motivated? Jesus, maybe if we could start with you for that.
That's a tough question. It's something that's very personal to everybody. For me, I always went back to what my values were, and remembering that I wanted to see improve the representation and kind of be that person for families like mine. It made the days when I was, going over OChem or physics, or honestly English paper writing, a little bit easier, because I knew that I wasn't just doing it for myself. I was doing it for the long run for people like me, families like me, and that just kept me going. And sometimes I just needed that thought to cross my mind just for a minute or a second, so that I could just push through the last couple paragraphs or the last couple work sets. And also, like I said, for me was finding an activity outside of academia, jujitsu. It's like the new, what's it called? Everybody's like doing the weights and throwing it over the head. What's that guy? I forget what it's called. The point is, like, if you met a jiu-jitsu practitioner, they're always talking about it, and that's me. Point is that kept me motivated. It gave me another goal to kind of look for outside of that, and it kept me occupied and, mentally and physically fit.
Sorry, you're talking about CrossFit or the knee and jerk?
Yeah, CrossFit. My bad. For any CrossFitters out there.
We got the idea. Yeah, thank you, Jesus. Leslie, if you'd like to go next, any advice to stay motivated?
I'm a firm believer in what it's meant for me will never miss me. So literally, I'm just kind of try to go with the flow. It's not even that's kind of hard. I did retake the MCAT twice, and I was really rethinking my life. The second time I had to retake it, like I was like, am I even gonna make it? Like, what about if I fail and then this is it? I am gonna have to go ahead and just do something else with my life. And I really had to take a step back. And I would go and I would literally cry to my parents sometimes, my poor parents. And it was more like knowing that I had community and reminding myself why I was doing it. I was during that time I was also doing a free clinic at Coachella Valley where we were doing like farm workers and then giving free healthcare to farm workers, and just remember like, oh my God, like, yes, this is what I want to do. So crying, but I'll remind myself when I showed up in clinic and they thought that they knew that I knew what they were saying and that I was going to be able to interpret correctly. And when I told them, quiero ser doctora, I want to be a doctor, and they told me, you got it, mija. I was like, yeah, that's why I'm doing it. So for me, it was just continuing to be active in my community, being open and vulnerable to certain people, like telling them I'm struggling, but they got me. And in this case, it was sometimes my parents, the only person that knew that how much I was struggling. I did work full time the first time I did the MCAT, and I was still doing other stuff. The second time I had to cut down financially, so I worked part time, and then with my savings and having that support from my community, which was more emotionally. But yeah, there is somebody who's going to help you. Look for that person that's going to help you.
Great, thank you so much. Yes, we definitely agree the importance of that community in your own life. Yes, so valuable. Rebecca, if you would like to go next on any advice to stay motivated.
Okay, I really like the points that Jesus and Leslie brought up about taking breaks and finding your support. But I also want to add stay organized, because half the times where I was super stressed, not knowing what the heck I'm doing, it's because I was very unorganized. So I think stay organized, keep like a document or like a running like Excel or Google Doc or something about like what you're applying to, or like what set goals you want to do, kind of cuts down some of that stress and will help you see the end goal a little bit better. So I think that's my one piece of advice.
Thank you. Yeah, like that. Yeah. I think organizational skills always a valuable thing to develop. I think any part of life. Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Davila, if you'd like anything you'd like to say on the topic of staying motivated?
So one thing I've been told many times, and please not the cleanest thing or the most articulate, embrace the suck. That is in reality. If I can go back and meet those counselors that I knew when I was 18 that told me what the experience of becoming a doctor was like, I would choke them out in a closet and drag them into a room, because all they did was tell me the great, wonderful, everything that could be a doctor. They didn't tell you about the 80 to 100-hour work weeks. They didn't tell you about being away from your family. They didn't tell you about the multiple failures you will have to endure, the constant questioning if you're good enough, the imposter syndrome, the exhaustion, after you forgetting your own name and what your address is, and I have a cat. I didn't even know I had a cat. Just how tired you are. No one tells you this story, but if you always remember that this is part of this reality and you embrace it, you'll get to the end. You're not going to be pretty, and you're not going to be what the picture on the wall said. You might be broken, bruised, and bloody, but you will get there. embrace the suck.
Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a good perspective, I think, to have on a lot of things in life. Yes. So yeah, thank you so much. And Dr. Bryant, if you'd like to close out, any advice that you would have on staying motivated?
Dr. Davila said you really do have to embrace the suck, because getting into grad school is very hard, but I'm glad I took the 2-year break I did before, because the whole 3 years of PT school was that much harder, and it's not pretty. Some people will have straight A's, and some of us are barely going to be surviving with B minuses, and I'm very proud of that, because it's very, very hard, but that doesn't take away from your intelligence, who you are as a clinician. To joke, at Loma Linda, we sat alongside, we shared the same building with the med school students and the pharmacy students and the PT students, and we all cried together because we felt like we were failing in school. And it was so nice to have that community, because you knew you were in it together. And the one thing I will never forget at Loma Linda, our very first week, is the dean of allied health said, you've had to jump through hoops to get to the programs you are here for. We're not here to make you continue to jump through hoops. We are a program trying to support you and get you through the difficulties of which any grad school program will present, and looking alongside each other of, okay, we are the family that's going to help get each other through this, no matter what discipline we're in. And that's where I just want to end on making sure you find a program that's a good fit for you, because it is hard and you have to embrace the suck, and a program that's going to fit your personal needs as not only as a student, but as a person. And that's really what I would, took away through that whole journey and experience.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Bryant. So it brings us to just about the end of our panel. So we'll go ahead and conclude there, just about out of time. But I want to say just such immense thanks to all of our panelists for coming by today. You've given so many great perspectives. I think that I'm hopeful a lot of our students, both in attendance today and maybe viewing our recording in the future, will get a lot of just useful advice for. So thank you so much for coming today. For any students here, especially getting students with the Science Success Center, I want to just point again to the chat, just to, if you haven't already, please fill out the form to log your attendance for an event for the semester, just so we can be sure to have that in hand. Otherwise, thank you all for coming. We greatly appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Much appreciated.
Dr. Bryant, thank you so much.